एमआरआई की तो बहुत अच्छी मशीन है वहाँ पे, तो हम लोग तो वहीं जाते हैं, वहीं पर कराते हैं एक्सरे वगैरह, एमआरआई, सीटी स्कैन।
कि इतनी हाई क्वालिटी के इतने एक्सपेंसिव इक्विपमेंट इन्होंने उत्तराखंड सरकार को दिए हैं। ये बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है उत्तराखंड की जनता के लिए और उसका बहुत लाभ मिल रहा है लोगों को।
We have seen major cyclone events in the recent past, and one of the challenges has been that of being able to safely evacuate large number of people from coastal habitations that are highly vulnerable to cyclonic winds, flooding, to safe locations.
Through the National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project Phase 1 and 2 and the Coastal Disaster Risk Reduction Project, the World Bank is funding almost 1,000 cyclone shelters that are going to be built across the entire Indian coastline. These vary in size from housing 500 people to housing 2,000, 2,500 people. So even if you take an average of 1,000, close to 1 million people along the entire Indian coastline will have a safe shelter to go to in case there is a cyclone or a heavy tropical storm.
The way the cyclone shelters are located is that they are typically located in what one would describe as the host village, but the cyclone shelter would also in all likelihood serve neighboring villages.
These cyclone shelters have been designed after extensive consultation with the community and especially women members of the community. These cyclone shelters are not only for protecting their lives at the time of a disaster, but they are also spaces that the community can use in regular times. So they're being put to use as schools, essentially primary schools, as secondary schools, as colleges, as community centers for the community to meet or for other community functions. It allows community better ownership of the space. It also helps in better maintenance of this infrastructure and optimizes the investment towards building this kind of infrastructure.
The access road to these cyclone shelters is typically an all-weather road, saying access roads. Every multi-purpose evacuation shelter also has a generator facility of a fairly high capacity. The generator serves as a backup to pump up water but also maintain a basic level of illumination within the premises. One of the features that we have included in every cyclone shelter is a toilet for disabled. You have a WC with a railing for people to be able to hold on. At the floor level, there is no obstruction, which ensures that any movement of wheelchairs doesn't get obstructed.
এই 2013 ମସିହା ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଯେଉଁ ହୁଡ଼ହୁଡ଼ ହେଇଥିଲା ସେଠି ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଆମେ ବହୁତ କ୍ଷତିଗ୍ରସ୍ତ ହେଇଥିଲା।
ଆଉ ଆମ ଗ୍ରାମରେ ବହୁତ କ୍ଷୟକ୍ଷତି ଘଟିଛି, ବହୁତ ଲୋକ ଧନଜୀବନ ହାନି ଘଟିଛି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଏବେ ଯେଉଁ ବାତ୍ୟା ଆଶ୍ରୟସ୍ଥଳୀଟା ତିଆରି ହେଲା ଫଳରେ ଆମ ଗ୍ରାମର ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ବହୁତ ଉନ୍ନତି ଘଟିବ।
ଯେ ଆମେ ଯେତେ ବଡ଼ ବିପଦ ଆସିଲେ ବି ନିଜ ଜୀବନକୁ ବାଜି ଲଗେଇକି ଅନ୍ୟ ଜୀବନକୁ ରକ୍ଷା କରିପାରିବୁ।
Community is really the first responder. This goes a long way in making sure that lives are saved, people are rescued, they get immediate medical attention, as well as the most vulnerable within a community are taken care of.
Uttarakhand, blessed with nature's bounty, but also impacted by frequent natural disasters. In this mountainous terrain, bridges are lifelines for communities. Without them, communities are cut off from access to healthcare, education, livelihoods, and disaster relief. To empower communities, the World Bank, in collaboration with the government of Uttarakhand, has built disaster-resilient bridges across the state.
जब से मतलब ये पुल बना हमारे लिए मतलब रोड की सुविधा हुई तो बच्चे दौड़ के आते हैं।
Saroj says that because of the bridge, more women and children in her village are now getting vaccinated.
तो जब वो ब्रिज बन गया तो एम्बुलेंस अब 108 भी आती है, महिलाओं की इंस्टीट्यूशनल डिलीवरीज भी इंक्रीज हुई हैं। पुल तो था ही नहीं, एक लकड़ी की पटिया थी, वो पार लड़कियां नहीं कर पाती थी, ज़्यादातर उनका स्कूल छूटता था। लेकिन ब्रिज बनाने के बाद बच्चियां स्कूल जाना स्टार्ट की हैं, वो बहुत ज़्यादा खुश हैं अब।
इसको बाढ़ से कोई खतरा नहीं होगा, जिससे बना है नहीं, काफ़ी ऊंचा भी है, मजबूत भी है।
Built for a design life of 100 years, they are capable of withstanding multiple natural hazards. The bridges have proved their worth during subsequent disasters in carrying out emergency evacuation and providing disaster relief. Farmers in villages no longer carry produce on their backs. Improved motorable connectivity from their village to bigger markets now fetches better price for their produce.
हम यहाँ से मटर है, टमाटर है, पूरा पीठ में हमें ढुलान करना पड़ता था। अभी जो गाड़ी है वो यहीं पे हमें नज़दीक में मिल रही है, तो उस चीज़ का फ़ायदा तो ज़रूर हो रहा है हमें।
These bridges provide all-weather connectivity, bringing in more tourists and new business opportunities for the local people. Thanks to safe and resilient bridges, the people of Uttarakhand feel empowered to travel across the state without fear to seek a brighter future. This is Pushpa with her family, their faces gleaming with joy and gratitude for her health and safety.
शुरू में तो मुझे जो है रात में अचानक मेरे गले में जो है एकदम से खराश सी हुई, तो मुझे यही लगा कि मुझे भी कोविड हो गया शायद।
Pushpa is one of the many who got timely medical attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to collaboration between the World Bank and the government of Uttarakhand. Access to healthcare facilities is a challenge for communities living in distant hilly villages of Uttarakhand. Through World Bank support, good healthcare is now available at the doorsteps of people living in remote villages. The state has procured 140 ambulances, 40 with advanced life support systems. These ambulances deployed in far-flung areas are now providing timely medical aid.
2022-23 में लगभग 84,000 लोगों को इनसे फ़ायदा हुआ। इसमें ऑक्सीजन सपोर्ट था, वेंटिलेटर था, जिससे बहुतों की जान बची।
High-quality MRI and CT scan machines installed in tertiary care hospitals have made healthcare facilities accessible to people across the state at affordable prices.
MRI की तो बहुत अच्छी मशीन है वहाँ पे, तो हम लोग तो वहीं जाते हैं, वहीं पर कराते हैं एक्सरे वगैरह, MRI, CT स्कैन।
कि इतनी हाई क्वालिटी के, इतने एक्सपेंसिव इक्विपमेंट इन्होंने उत्तराखंड सरकार को दिए हैं, ये बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है उत्तराखंड की जनता के लिए, और उसका बहुत लाभ मिल रहा है लोगों को।
आ ये जो स्कूल घर ये छोट घर से घर भितर आम निहाती 1,500 उपरे लोक भर्ती होती गोटे सोरिष पकड़ा राहा नहीं मनीष एत निश्वास प्रश्वास नापी भली कहार क्षमता नहीं लोक भी तार भितर गोटे गोटे लोक मरीगले से तो कांद कांद मारे सारे से दूसरा मुझे कही पार सर
एक झटका आया इतना माने वो पानी का जो करंट हुआ कच्चा घर पूरा टूट गया।
Almost every year, the fields and villages of North Bihar were ravaged by the swollen waters of the Kosi River that rushed down from the Himalayas in the monsoon season. In 2008, the river, often known as Bihar's sorrow, changed its course, devastating the countryside for miles around. Poonam Devi lost one of her children in the floods. Her home and her small shop, her only means of livelihood, were also gone.
एगो बच्चो हमर भैंस गेले रहे वो बच्चा बगल में गड्ढा रहे वही में की कहे छै वही में भैंस का चल गेले था पता नहीं चलले।
Today, with the help of the World Bank supported Bihar Kosi Basin Development Project, Poonam Devi and thousands of families like hers have been able to rebuild their lives. The project is a key part of the government of Bihar's efforts to build resilience to the floods that frequently ravage the state. The spurs and embankments along the river have been strengthened. The project has also helped establish a new flood management improvement support center to study the volatile behavior of this unpredictable river. Flood warnings are now issued up to 5 days in advance, including through social media, compared to just a few hours earlier. Agriculture is thriving, and farmers are cultivating lands along the embankments without worrying about floods and erosion. New roads and bridges are being built, enabling farmers to take their produce to market. Families are building new homes and shops, investing in their futures. Pregnant women are now able to reach hospitals in time, and children can go to school even during the heavy monsoon season.
बहुत जगह हम लोगों ने प्रोटेक्ट किया है ओनली बिकॉज वी न्यू इन एडवांस कि यहाँ पर इस इंटेंसिटी का बारिश होने वाला है और वहाँ पर लोग अलर्ट थे डिपार्टमेंट की और उन्होंने प्रोटेक्ट किया सारी चीज़ें।
The project's holistic approach to flood management is a model that other flood-prone Indian states can follow.
Uttarakhand, blessed with nature's bounty, but also impacted by frequent natural disasters. In this mountainous terrain, bridges are lifelines for communities. Without them, communities are cut off from access to healthcare, education, livelihoods, and disaster relief. To empower communities, the World Bank, in collaboration with the government of Uttarakhand, has built disaster-resilient bridges across the state.
जब से मतलब ये पुल बना हमारे लिए मतलब रोड की सुविधा हुई तो बच्चे दौड़ के आते हैं।
Saroj says that because of the bridge, more women and children in her village are now getting vaccinated.
तो जब वो ब्रिज बन गया तो एम्बुलेंस अब 108 भी आती है, महिलाओं की इंस्टीट्यूशनल डिलीवरीज भी इंक्रीज हुई हैं। पुल तो था ही नहीं, एक लकड़ी की पटिया थी, वो पार लड़कियां नहीं कर पाती थी, ज़्यादातर उनका स्कूल छूटता था। लेकिन ब्रिज बनाने के बाद बच्चियां स्कूल जाना स्टार्ट की हैं, वो बहुत ज़्यादा खुश हैं अब।
इसको बाढ़ से कोई खतरा नहीं होगा जिससे बना है नहीं।
Evacuation and providing disaster relief. Farmers in villages no longer carry produce on their backs. Improved motorable connectivity from their village to bigger markets now fetches better price for their produce.
हम यहाँ से मटर है, टमाटर है, पूरा पीठ में हमें ढुलान करना पड़ता था। अभी जो गाड़ी है वो यहीं पे हमें नज़दीक में मिल रही है, तो उस चीज़ का फ़ायदा तो ज़रूर हो रहा है हमें।
These bridges provide all-weather connectivity, bringing in more tourists and new business opportunities for the local people. Thanks to safe and resilient bridges, the people of Uttarakhand feel empowered to travel across the state without fear to seek a brighter future.
बलदा सरासरी रे मैनू
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and this is just a soft announcement. We shall formally start the curtain raiser in a while from now, but for all the people that have arrived here on time, there is no reason that you're in Goa and we should keep you away from the bar any longer. So
This is
requesting
Pushpa
everyone
with her
to please
family.
pick up your first
Their
drinks
faces
of the
gleaming with
evening.
joy and
It's time for
gratitude
you to,
for her health
exchange
and
some
safety.
introductions, do some networking over your first preferred glasses, everyone. And let me softly declare the bar open.
Pushpa is one of the many who got timely medical attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to collaboration between the World Bank and the government of Uttarakhand.
Inviting you all to pick up your drinks because a little bit of alcohol during a fireside chat is a perfect combination.
को इनसे फायदा हुआ इसमें ऑक्सीजन सपोर्ट था वेंटिलेटर था जिससे बहुतों की जान बची
High quality MRI and CT scan machines installed in tertiary care hospitals have made healthcare facilities accessible to people across the state at affordable prices.
MRI की तो बहुत अच्छी मशीन है वहाँ पे, तो हम लोग तो वहीं जाते हैं, वहीं पर कराते हैं एक्सरे वगैरह, MRI, CT स्कैन।
कि इतनी हाई क्वालिटी के इतने एक्सपेंसिव इक्विपमेंट इन्होंने उत्तराखंड सरकार को दिए हैं, ये बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है उत्तराखंड की जनता के लिए और उसका बहुत लाभ मिल रहा है लोगों को।
Hello everybody, from Kutanap region in the south of India in Kerala, where it's actually very hot right now. I'm here to visit the works under the Rebuild Kerala project, a $375 million effort funded by the World Bank to rebuild the infrastructure in the state after the devastating 2018 floods. Those floods affected 4.5 million people. That's 16% of the population of the state. And it cost around, or the damages were estimated to be around $4.4 billion US. But what Kerala decided to do was not just to rebuild, but to rebuild back better, because the likelihood of such floods continuing to hit the state is very high. And what we're looking at here specifically is a project to rebuild a crucial connecting road between two large main roads going right through the paddy field area where a lot of communities live, and during 2018 they were cut off from access to markets, to health services, to schools. Their houses were inundated, and for several days, sometimes weeks, they couldn't really do anything. So by rebuilding the road, we're helping them to get access, but it's also built in such a way that the water can traverse easily under the bridges through culverts that have been designed to accommodate the regular flooding. And the people here, the beneficiaries with whom I just spoke a few minutes ago, are saying they expect an increase in tourism, they expect an increase in agricultural productivity, they think they can now have 2 crops rather than just 1 crop a year, and overall they're very happy with what has been happening here. Perhaps one of the most interesting aspects of this particular project and the approach that Kerala has chosen is that it's very much community-based. So it's not just the engineers using weather data to plan what should be built and how it should be built, but going to the communities and asking them, what do they need? Where were the floods last time they hit? So that the infrastructure is designed together with the people. I think this is an approach for building back better, for building for resilience that other places in India and in South Asia can learn from. That's why it was interesting for me to be here. Thanks very much for listening.
Uttarakhand, blessed with nature's bounty, but also impacted by frequent natural disasters. In this mountainous terrain, bridges are lifelines for communities, Without them, communities are cut off from access to healthcare, education, Saroj says that because of the bridge, more women and children in her village are now getting vaccinated.
तो जब वो ब्रिज बन गया तो एम्बुलेंस अब 108 भी आती है, महिलाओं की इंस्टीट्यूशनल डिलीवरीज भी इंक्रीज हुई हैं। पुल तो था ही नहीं, एक लकड़ी की पटिया थी, वो पार लड़कियां नहीं कर पाती थी, ज़्यादातर उनका स्कूल छूटता था। लेकिन ब्रिज बनाने के बाद बच्चियां स्कूल जाना स्टार्ट की हैं, वो बहुत ज़्यादा खुश हैं अब।
इसको बाढ़ से कोई खतरा नहीं होगा, जिस बना है नहीं, काफ़ी ऊंचा भी है, मजबूत भी है।
Built for a design life of 100 years, they are capable of withstanding multiple natural hazards. The bridges have proved their worth during subsequent disasters in carrying out emergency evacuation and providing disaster relief. Farmers in villages no longer carry produce on their backs. Improved motorable connectivity from their village to bigger markets now fetches better price for their produce.
हम यहाँ से मटर है, टमाटर है, पूरा पीठ में हमें ढुलान करना पड़ता था। अभी जो गाड़ी है वो यहीं पे हमें नज़दीक में मिल रही है, तो उस चीज़ का फ़ायदा तो ज़रूर हो रहा है हमें।
These bridges provide all-weather connectivity, bringing in more tourists and new business opportunities for the local people. Thanks to safe and resilient bridges, the people of Uttarakhand feel empowered to travel across the state without fear to seek a brighter future. This is Pushpa with her family, their faces gleaming with joy and gratitude for her health and safety.
शुरू में तो मुझे जो है रात में अचानक मेरे गले में जो है एकदम से खराश सी हुई, तो मुझे यही लगा कि मुझे भी कोविड हो गया शायद।
Pushpa is one of the many who got timely medical attention during the COVID-19 pandemic, thanks to collaboration between the World Bank and the government of Uttarakhand. Access to healthcare facilities is a challenge for communities living in distant hilly villages of Uttarakhand. Through World Bank support, good healthcare is now available at the doorsteps of people living in remote villages. The state has procured 140 ambulances, 40 with advanced life support systems. These ambulances deployed in far-flung areas are now providing timely medical aid.
2022-23 में लगभग 84,000 लोगों को इनसे फ़ायदा हुआ। इसमें ऑक्सीजन सपोर्ट था, वेंटिलेटर था, जिससे बहुतों की जान बची।
High quality MRI and CT scan machines installed in tertiary care hospitals have made healthcare facilities accessible to people across the state at affordable prices.
MRI की तो बहुत अच्छी मशीन है वहाँ पे, तो हम लोग तो वहीं जाते हैं, वहीं पर कराते हैं एक्सरे वगैरह, MRI, CT स्कैन।
कि इतनी हाई क्वालिटी के, इतने एक्सपेंसिव इक्विपमेंट इन्होंने उत्तराखंड सरकार को दिए हैं, ये बहुत बड़ा अचीवमेंट है उत्तराखंड की जनता के लिए, और उसका बहुत लाभ मिल रहा है लोगों को।
We have seen major cyclone events in the recent past, and one of the challenges has been that of being able to safely evacuate large number of people from coastal habitations that are highly vulnerable to cyclonic winds, flooding, to safe locations.
Through the National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project, Phase 1 and 2, and the Coastal Disaster Risk Reduction Project, the World Bank is funding almost 1,000 cyclone shelters that are going to be built across the entire Indian coastline. These vary in size from housing 500 people to housing 2,000, 2,500 people. So even if you take an average of 1,000, close to 1 million people along the entire Indian coastline will have a safe shelter to go to in case there is a cyclone or a heavy tropical storm.
The way the cyclone shelters are located is that they are typically located in what one would describe as the host village, but the cyclone shelter would also in all likelihood serve neighboring villages.
These cyclone shelters have been designed after extensive consultation with the community and especially women members of the community. These cyclone shelters are not only for protecting their lives at the time of a disaster, but they are also spaces that the community can use in regular times. So they're being put to use as schools, essentially primary schools, as secondary schools, as colleges, as community centers for the community to meet or for other community functions. It allows community better ownership of the space. It also helps in better maintenance of this infrastructure and optimizes the investment towards building this kind of infrastructure.
The access road to these cyclone shelters is typically an all-weather road, and in places where the road is not in good condition or the cyclone shelter is located in a place where access is not adequate, the project is also financing access roads. Every multi-purpose evacuation shelter also has a generator facility of a fairly high capacity. The generator serves as the backup to pump up water but also maintain a basic level of illumination within the premises. One of the features that we have included in every cyclone shelter is a toilet for disabled. You have a WC with a railing for people to be able to hold on. At the floor level, there is no obstruction, which ensures that any movement of wheelchairs doesn't get obstructed.
This goes a long way in making sure that lives are saved, people are rescued, they get immediate medical attention, as well as the most vulnerable within a community are taken care of.
ये जो स्कूल घर ये छोट घर से घर भितर आम निहाती 1,500 ऊपर लोक भर्ती होती गोटे सोरिष पकड़ा को राह ना मनीष एमती निश्वास प्रश्वास नापी भली कहार क्षमता ना लोक भी तार भितर गोटे गोटे लोक मरीगले कांद कांद मारे सारे से दूसरा मैं कही पारूँ सर
एक झटका आया इतना माने वो पानी का जो करंट हुआ कच्चा घर पूरा टूट गया। मेरा जो बाबा थे माँ थे और भाई और बहन ये सब भतीजा सब चला गया पानी में। हमारा जो फैमिली मेंबर थे 25 थे उसके बाद हम अभी बचे हुए 6 आदमी हम अभी बचे हुए तो ढूंढ के एक आदमी को गांव का हम लोग कलेक्ट किया है।
The warning came just 2 days before the landfall. Both the estimates about the cyclone's intensity and its path proved wrong. There were only a few concrete shelters to protect tens of thousands of people. When the cyclone hit the coast of Odisha with winds above 260 kilometers per hour, no one was prepared for its severity. Thousands were swept away with a tidal surge. Odisha went out of contact with the whole world. Relief took days to arrive. It was called the super cyclone, the strongest in India's memory in the 20th century. Out of this crisis was born India's first institution focused on disaster management, then called the Odisha State Disaster Mitigation Authority, OSDMA. Through 2 decades of systematic efforts since the super cyclone, the government of Odisha has institutionalized its preparedness and response mechanisms.
To create a secure database at the SCOC and DOC.
This includes a state-of-the-art early warning system housed in the State Emergency Operations Center in Bhubaneswar.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is just to give you a heads up. We start exactly at 8 o'clock. Till then, please feel free to mingle, or this is the time for you to find the best chairs for the evening as you settle down for a very interesting chat coming up. We start exactly at 8.
Since the super cyclone, Odisha has also built a network of over 850 cyclone shelters covering its entire coastline. These were built under various projects, including the World Bank financed National Cyclone Risk Mitigation Project. Realizing that the government alone cannot handle such high magnitude disasters, Odisha brought local communities at the very heart of its disaster management approach. It handed over the cyclone shelters to village level committees who manage and maintain these shelters.
आम ग्रामर उत्तर दिगरु ऋषिकुल्या नदी बही अच्छी प्रवाहित होइछि दक्षिण दिगरे रामचंडी पहाड़ बा केनाल रही अछि ए मुख्य रास्ता.
Nearly 10,000 village level disaster management committees regularly map the hazardous parts of their village, update evacuation routes and discuss various roles and responsibilities. However, plans work only if people know how to execute them during a disaster. Here at the cyclone shelter in Ganjam, the formidable Odisha Disaster Rapid Action Force is conducting the annual training of village-level disaster management teams. Over 5 days, 50 boys and girls from every village train in search and rescue, first aid techniques and other themes related to disaster management.
Look, listen, feel.
Odisha today has over 1 lakh trained youth on ground zero who can respond to a disaster within the shortest span of time.
अम्फान होता तो पूर्व बहुत जोर वर्षा होता तो लोक मैंने घर छड़ाइबा चाहू ना कहीं बात्या तो आसूची ना तो मु सेल्टर शिखी जो ट्रेनिंग नहीं लोक मानक जेकोसी विपर्य भी आसो मुझे सेल्टर नहीं पहुँचेबी तो से जेहेतु छाड़ू ना घर भल भाव में बुझेकी मुझे सेल्टर को आनी.
Every year on June 19th, ahead of the monsoons, the State Emergency Operations Center kickstarts a massive mock drill across all the districts. A dummy warning reaches the cyclone shelters in the coastal areas. What follows is a simulated exercise to evacuate the villagers to the cyclone shelter. Held consistently over the last 15 years, these mock drills help both the government and the communities to review their preparedness, find gaps and update their plans. Several years of disaster preparedness paid returns. In 2013, nearly 1 million people were evacuated ahead of Phylin, the strongest cyclone to hit Odisha after the super cyclone. The number of deaths were limited to 21. Odisha had come a long way and the world took notice. Since the super cyclone, Odisha has braved 10 cyclones in nearly 2 decades. The drastic reduction in the loss of lives is a
Our government is that every human life is precious.
It's not the cyclones alone. There are slow onset disasters too. Like the sea quietly marching to one's doorstep. Rising sea levels and intensifying cyclones are eroding Odisha's shoreline. Here, in Pudampet village in Ganjam, the magnitude of erosion is stark. C.H. Tatya lost his first house 13 years ago. That house, those boats, and the fields, they are all submerged half a kilometer away in the sea. Cyclone Phylin caused further damage. Finally, in August last year, a strong tidal wave brought down 60 more houses in this village. Tatya lost his second home yet again.
बेसी भयंकर आम मरगले से भल से टाइम से भय लगे आम से धैर्य भाग कहीं आमर गोटे फिशिंग मैन ना आम समुद्र से डर भय ना जे लगे पिला कुटुम बाहर के कौटे दाई कर कौटे फाड़ पर पड़ाइबा इच्छा लगे से गर्जन है.
Most families have relocated to a new settlement due to the cyclone and erosion. Pudampet is a deserted village today. It seems like an angry sea, wiping off homes, fields, and livelihoods with rising intensity.
Ladies and gentlemen, requesting the guests kindly begin to settle down for the ones that are still not seated. We start in the next couple of minutes.
In Astarang block of Puri, the river meets the sea far into the horizon. But here too, the villagers say the sea has come closer by half a kilometer in the last 3 decades.
मैडम आम बापा जेजे अमल 250 एकर जमी ये दादार थिला बापार थिला समस्तंकर 250 एकर जमी समुद्र गर्भर जाइछि.
During high tide and cyclonic storm surges, the seawater enters agricultural fields and makes them saline, directly affecting the livelihood of the farmers. In Quetajanga village, this is a 3.5 kilometer saline embankment circling the paddy fields, shielding them from sea ingress. Built at nearly 5.5 meters above the sea level, it can withstand heavy storms and surges. Several kilometers of such saline embankments are not only protecting agricultural fields, they have also improved road communication to these remote villages. Here, nearly 300 acres of land stands lush with paddy crops, restoring the livelihoods of vulnerable farmers.
बंध नथिले आगे आमे गाँव रे रही न थांतु आमे कोठी जाई बाहरे दरकार पइले कोठी दादन कटी बाहर मुंड को थांतु एठी आमे रही पार न थांतु समुद्र जो फळी हिसाब रे प्रति वर्ष आम खेती सहिया पड़ुतला आमे एठी रही न थांतु किंतु बंध होबा द्वारा आमे आराम रे गाँव रे अछु.
Adiyamma was widowed early in life. A few years ago, her mud house succumbed to Cyclone Phylin. She then moved to this new concrete house in a new and safer settlement built on elevated land. Her community was trained in disaster-resilient construction and given the flexibility to make their homes as per their needs. It is a different life today for these villagers. The new colony has community facilities and basic amenities in place. Since Cyclone Phylin in 2013, Odisha has constructed houses in Ganjam, Puri and Khordha districts, ensuring the safety of many fishing communities.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a very warm welcome. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jha. I would like to try this once again. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host. My name is Ruchika Dawar. And as I welcome each one of you to this gorgeous Pearl of the Orient, you're here in Goa, let me give this another try. Good evening. Well, thank you, everyone. And may I request the people that are stranded at the bar, professing their undying love to the bartender, may I request you all to please join us on the tables as we are ready for this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to the India Climate and Development Partners Meet, co-hosted by the Government of Goa and the World Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, starting tomorrow, this is a forum where everyone gets a chance to talk about and build some critical conversations about not only India's climate goals, but also we get to gaze a little deeper into the pipelines that will bring us closer to these goals, whether it is finance, technology, or policy. But tonight, this evening, is just about dipping your toes a little bit into this vast subject with a very interesting curtain raiser chat. As I invite our moderator and our guests onto the stage, for my guests that are here from India, can I see a show of hands? How many Indians in the house? No, I see some foreigners as well. So just for, if you agree with me, I want to hear a loud yes. You know, in our country, we have this beautiful tradition. Maybe some of you still do it, and maybe some of people like me, we have seen our elders do it. So I would see my grandfather wake up every morning, go to a nearby river, and take a dip and make an offering to the rising sun, जिसे हम चढ़ते सूरज को अर्पण करना कहते हैं. कितने लोगों ने देखा है? Can I see your hands up? And what is the significance of this motion? Well, the reason we salute the rising sun is because a rising sun holds within it the promise, the potential of a day that is going to unfold as per our expectations. A rising sun is a harbinger of all that we hope for. And this is precisely the reason that when we talk about the subject of this entire conference, a lot of hopes are pinned on the youth, because they are the ones who are going to be taking this agenda and its goals forward. So we have a very interesting fireside chat coming up, and ex-IAS Mr. Abhas Jha. Mr. Abhas Jha is a practice manager, climate change and disaster risk management for South Asia region within the urban resilience and land global practice for the World Bank. He leads a global team working on infrastructure lending, technical assistance, and advisory services within the World Bank. Earlier, he served as an advisor to the World Bank Executive Director for Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, and Sri Lanka, and was for 12 years a member of the Indian Administrative Services as well. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause to Mr. Abhas Jha as he joins us on the stage. आइए मिलके थोड़ा इस शाम का क्लाइमेट बदलते हैं, तालियां थोड़ी तेज बजाते हैं प्लीज. Let's make some noise. I would now like to invite somebody who is a writer, political researcher, a social worker, a farmer at heart, and a singer by talent, and has been awarded the Times Power Woman of the Year 2022 and Times Digital Entrepreneur of the Year 2023. She is the founder of Santerra Living and co-founder of NYK Daily. Most recently, she was the ambassador for the United Nations COP28 UAE for the climate conference in Dubai. She is also a sustainability consultant for organizations looking to reduce their carbon footprint and works with brands on social media to help them carve a presence in their niche. She holds a degree in computer science engineering from VIT University and a diploma in marketing analytics from IIM Nagpur. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a resounding applause to Ms. Arushi Sana. And now, introducing a gentleman onto the stage who is truly a change maker. Whatever I have read about him, I have flipped through the amazing book, which is literally a handbook for lay people like me. Well, I do feel that he is probably the perfect guest to be on the stage when we talk about youth and how they can bring a change into the entire approach towards climate. Ladies and gentlemen, a climate optimist and sustainability advocate, he is working to simplify climate science and sustainability. Author of the book, I Am a Climate Optimist, he has delivered 5 TEDx talks, created 3 climate art installations from writer, photographer, filmmaker to a storyteller, to a blogger, Instagrammer, YouTuber, content creator. I could say he's a bona fide climate influencer. He carries these titles with passion and pride and also contributes to Forbes India, Times of India, and Your Story. He carries many accolades such as being listed under the Forbes India's Top 100 Digital Star, Climate Warrior of the Year by the Cosmopolitan magazine, Champion for Responsible Travel 2022 by Travel and Leisure. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands up for the creator for change, Akash Ranison. And now I leave this forum in the hands of our very able moderator, Mr. Abhas Jha, as he tells us as to why all our hopes are pinned on the youth.
Thank you, Ruchika, and a very warm welcome. How lucky we are to be in this beautiful surroundings, to be talking about climate. So first of all, Arushi and Akash, thank you very much for taking the time to be here with us. So let me start off by asking both of you, maybe Arushi, you can go first. Tell us about your climate journey. What interested you? How did you get to where you are? And just tell us a little bit about your trajectory.
Hi everyone, my name is Arushi Sana and thank you for the lovely introduction. So I run a news company which is called NYK Daily, and we cover a lot, not just political news, but climate stories from across the world as well, and through our able team of journalists. So I've always been aware of climate change since I was a child, because whenever there would be art competitions at school, I would be making pictures of earthquakes and tsunamis and disaster management, and but I could never really take action on it till COVID happened, and which is when I got the time to sit down, research, and think of ways where I could make eco-friendly changes in my own life, and where I could help make that information available to people on social media as well. So, and I wouldn't call myself an influencer per se. I strongly feel that not every blogger has the power to influence. But yes, I do post a lot on social media about the changes that we can do every day in terms of leading a low-waste lifestyle. And so one thing led to the other during COVID, and I started writing a lot about it in various columns, and which is when I also started establishing a firm which deals with eco-coal, right? So making bio-briquettes, and it's a form of biofuel which is made from agricultural waste. And the passion that I've basically had throughout my life, it culminated into something which now translates to groundwork. And that is the real satisfaction that I get today from my work. And we also do a lot of cleanup drives now as part of our company's CSR initiatives. And we organize them in Telangana and Maharashtra as of now. So I think these, a lot of these things are, it has reached a lot of the right audiences, but I do feel that there is a long way to go in terms of making climate change, climate action more accessible, like making renewable energy more accessible, and that's what I want to work towards as well.
Fantastic. So Akash, tell us about your climate journey.
First of all, thank you so much for calling me on board, and everyone taking out time to listen to my story, which I myself do not really find that interesting, but if you find so. Obviously, I didn't have any thought. In my school, I was failing in each and every class, so forget about getting into science. Yes, I was interested, but never really thought that I'm going to be here at this place where I am today and write things like this, which I was really scared of while in school. But then right after school, I started traveling, and I was going to all the places in the country by cycling, hitchhiking, and walking to different places in India or different countries, and that allowed me an opportunity to come close to nature. And rather than going to places we go for, let's say, architecture or for food or culture, I ended up going to places which was more about nature, which is like mountains for me. And that's where I fell in love with nature. And anything you love, you try to protect it. That's the simple story, that I traveled, found nature something which I really love, and started protecting it. And whatever I learned, first obviously I saw plastic being littered around. I thought, okay, this is the issue. And as soon as I started learning about plastic, I got to learn that, okay, plastic is not really the biggest issue. It's a very, very minuscule, tiny issue out there. Waste product of petroleum, and we make plastic out of it. But there's a huge, larger issue, which is carbon emissions and methane emission, and to which we call climate change. And that's when my interest of science in school, which I wanted to learn, like how the earth is floating. Is there a pole down there, or there's a rope up there? How are we making it how is it happening? That curiosity, and then now this, I thought to work in the space of climate change, got me Googling or searching videos on YouTube, and that got me to the place where I am today.
Thank you. So, Akash, you've written a book. There's a copy there, and thank you for sharing a copy with me, called I'm a Climate Optimist. So why are you a climate optimist?
So I, as a person, my personality is optimist, and then whatever I do that is optimistic. You put me at any place, I will obviously find a solution, or if I can't find a solution, I'll find a lesson out of that problem. I go through, like I'm in a problem every other day. And how do I go with that, with this positive thought that, okay, still I'm excited to live for the next day, because I just turn around that problem in a way that I can see a solution into it. And so it's sort of like, for climate change, why am I optimistic? Because obviously I see the actions which I'm taking, and also the philosophy I follow. Like I really love reading to philosophers like Stoic philosophy, or Sun Tzu, Lao Tse, Confucius. All of these people have gone through really huge, humongous problems in their life, or they have been part of such dynasty which has gone through bigger problems, and they have played this role of seeing things in a positive way, that how we can go through every of these troubles and hurdles and still land up ourselves at a better place from where we are today. And hence it helps me see things. But even in terms of practicality, the work I do, that makes me feel positive, right? Okay, so back in, like right before the pandemic, I was experiencing climate anxiety. It's like something when you know that there is a problem, but you can't do something about it. So all you do is you read more about it and you suffer into it. And what helped me come out of my climate anxiety is that obviously the philosophy I was reading, and the philosophy always talks about, can you really do something about it? If you can, then go and do it. Or if you can't, then you cannot really be just stressing over it. And taking action in this space where I can be part of the solution has helped me a lot. When I realized, okay, I have climate anxiety and I'm spending hours and hours crying about it, what can be done? I started taking personal, individual steps. Like, let's say, I've been a vegetarian from my childhood, so I decided to opt for a plant-based diet. Right? That does cut down on a huge carbon or methane emission primarily, and then secondarily carbon emission. And that was one of the biggest steps I could take in my life. And it's been about 8 years that I've been on a plant-based diet. Then again, I am a nomad anyway, so I do not have a huge backpack, like 2 small bags, and everything has to fit into it. So my consumption in terms of tech, in terms of textile, or any consumer product is extremely low. And then, yeah, I was cutting down on almost everything. Then I thought, okay, what's the next step I can take? I'm trying to do everything. Can I really increase the impact? So I said, okay, I can outreach and I can share the details of the data I'm able to collect for myself with other people, and they might want to take similar steps. And I don't know how, I've never been to any institute, but then I really love creative space, whether it's about graphic designing, whether it's about photography or filmmaking, and I started using those skills. I was fascinated because I was getting to do work in this space. So my brain is stimulated that I'm doing creative things, and I was using those creative juice to communicate about climate change. So I never really felt like it's a job which I'm doing every day, or it's a boring thing which I'm doing every day, because every other day I'm capturing climate change in terms of frames, or in terms of movie, So my brain is happy every day because I get to do creative things, but parallelly I could communicate climate change to people. And also that we have seen climate change, it's been out there and scientists have knew it for like really long, but in terms of research paper. And that's where communication is an issue, that people out there as public do not want to read research paper because we consider it boring. Otherwise we would study more in colleges. So this creative thing helped me communicate it to people in a very positive, in a relaxed way. Even the book, if you read the subtitle, it says an easy guide to lead a sustainable life. So easy, right? Even when we were in the boardroom, we used this word that full of jargons. The book says, if you turn it around in the back, it says that you do not need to know any jargon. That's what I'm trying to do, simplify it for people. And yeah, doing these sort of things, and then when people reciprocate to the things which I'm putting out about, like reading book, there are so many people I know who have gone vegan / plant-based, same thing, right? Or people who have been eating non-veg food from the childhood, right? And they have decided to go vegan. If this doesn't give me optimistic feelings about future, what else will?
Let me push you a little bit on that, which is that the world is not going to go vegan. People don't want to give up things that they like.
Everyone should not go vegan.
Yeah. So then what's the solution?
See, I can't take off my jacket now, otherwise there's a tattoo called balance, right? And we were talking about this as well in the boardroom. I heard the word balance. It's all about balance. We can never go extreme into anything, otherwise that's an issue, right? For example, we should be kind to people, but there's a limit, right? Otherwise then people will run over me. Similar to veganism as well, to consumerism as well, we can't really just stop the whole economy right away. We have to bring it to a balance. And obviously carbon and methane are really required in the ecosystem. We do not have to, let's say, just wipe them off or like really erase them from the universe itself. It's part of the ecosystem. We need enough carbon, we need enough methane. It's just we are emitting way too much than the amount of carbon / methane. The ecosystem can offset in that duration, right? So I don't really believe in any sort of extremism. That's the reason also the book is called Climate Optimist. I never say that I'm an activist. Otherwise I'll be pushy. I'll be just on my things, what I want. I do not want to budge at all. I do not want to listen to other people. And also I think in that situation, I won't be allowed on this stage. I'm here because I'm okay to listen to other people as well, and I'm okay to give them the space of what they think and then find a common ground. So I never push people, or neither the book pushes anyone ever to do a certain thing. My agenda or my idea is to put the thing, the right fact, not knowledge, I would even say factual data exactly, to the people and let them choose what they want to do. And if we can all find a common ground, we'll find that place.
I think that's very true, especially about the activism part. I think the time for activism has gone and it's time for productive activism. So, you know, I think protests and all are great, but it's better to do something productive, like at least a form of activism that inspires people to make changes in their real life. And there are millions of people even now who are still using plastic toothbrushes when you have so many alternatives like bamboo toothbrushes or tooth powders instead of toothpaste, and not using like a reusable metal straw. So there are so many things that people can do, but they don't because of the wrong kind of guidance as well, I feel, and the wrong opinions on climate change. So like he said, extremism is so prevalent in terms of like, if somebody says, oh, they're vegan, there's automatically a judgment. I'm personally a vegetarian, and I do love my ghee and curd, like my dairy and everything. But at the same time, I don't eat meat. So for me, that is a form of balance. And I know people who are lactose intolerant, so they automatically, their dairy consumption is almost zero. But they eat the occasional meat once in a month. So that is also balanced compared to a lot of people who eat meat every single day. And you have to balance your physical health, your mental health, and the planet's health all at the same time, and the industries as well. Like, so that the economy doesn't collapse because of a lot of consumers making changes, sudden changes.
So Arushi, if I can stay with you. So are you an optimist? And if you are, what gives you the most hope?
I think technology is my biggest driver of hope, and not just because I'm a computer science engineer and I've actually implemented a lot of things, but because I understand that it somehow bridges the gap between people and policy. So, you know, when people demand, consumers will always demand a change. So I was in the Maldives last year, and I was working on a coral reef restoration project. So I asked them, how do you know, like, you know, which are the reefs to restore? And you can't always keep taking a dive and finding out which corals are getting bleached. And they said geospatial analysis. So through image processing, they figure out which corals are getting bleached, where are the colors that are getting faded, and then they act upon it. They work on reef restoration projects. They make sure that they propagate more polyp buds. And to me, that was fantastic. To me, solar power is like a miracle. And I think it is the single largest driver of change today, because also considering India is the 4th largest contributor to solar energy in the world. And we have one of Asia's largest solar parks as well at Modhera. And for a country like India, which receives abundant sunshine, there is no reason to not have a solar panel in the home, at your home, or at green buildings, like your office buildings. But the only issue there is the cost. So till solar power becomes affordable for people, we will not be investing in it. And that is where, and I think that is the drawback that I see with a lot of renewable energy practices. So till we make it affordable, people, and also, yes, there are incentives for when you install a panel at home. I have a solar panel at home. But I think that for industries and companies, incentives aren't enough. Like for them, I think it needs to be a mandate, because their consumption is very high. So it can't be compared to a household consumption. So, but the fact that today so many global organizations are coming together, such as the World Bank or the UN, to actually raise so much money, so that countries, even like countries in Africa and the developed countries as well, the fact that they are working so hard on implementing these things across the globe definitely gives me a lot of hope. But unfortunately, at the same time, which is technology, right? All of renewable energy is technology. But unfortunately, the thing that doesn't give me hope is people. So, I don't want to be, rude, but unfortunately, like, people still litter on the road every other day. People are not, even if they're aware of climate change, they still go and use plastic products. There are a lot of industries that are not willing to make that change to, let's say, eco-friendly packaging, or they're not willing to change their entire operation, like chain of operations, because yes, it will cost them a little bit of money in the beginning. So to me, that's what sort of reduces the hope at times. But I still see a good future, especially because so many countries have already pledged to go carbon neutral by 2050. So yes, of course, it's going to take a lot of time. Of course, people are going to take time to adapt to electric vehicles. But I think the fact that we have them today in the first place is great.
Okay, so let me take this discussion a little bit towards COP. Both of you were in COP, I believe, right?
Yes.
So when you come to a body like COP, which has all the countries of the world represented, and then there's a clear divide between the global north and the global south, right? And when we talk about climate justice, you have, for example, energy access still as a big issue. And we were talking earlier that from my home state of Bihar, the average citizen consumes less electricity than a fridge does in the North America, right? It's like 10 times more the power consumption. So it's a big issue, right? So how do you reconcile these 2 points of view? On the other hand, one hand, you have so many people that lack energy access properly. And then on the other hand, there is a climate crisis. So from where you sit as climate activists or optimists, how do you reconcile these 2 points of view?
So the work I do with Paris Peace Forum, and then which we declared in COP on the first day, Loss and Damage Fund, focuses on this same thing itself, right? That then there are nations who are emitting so much of carbon emissions / methane as well, versus then there are nations who are not really emitting that much, but then obviously these are the ones which are suffering. Let's say Pakistan is one of them. We have seen them fighting with natural disaster in last year a lot. And then there are other nations. I've been working with Barbados when it comes to negotiations for acquiring funds for the loss they have faced. And the whole negotiation is based on this one communication itself, that they are not really emitting the carbon emissions. And then there are nations who are emitting, and they should be the one paying for this loss which they are going through. And we have seen, no matter what kind of negotiations we had throughout the year and what nations were there participating in the negotiations, but the end result, we needed somewhere about $400 billion, and we got $700 million. And that is 0.2% of the whole required fund. So there's a huge gap between the ones who are not really emitting, the ones who are suffering, versus the one emitting and still are able to keep themselves safe and move ahead. The only thing which can be done is to keep on budging on this one negotiation, which we are looking forward to doing this year again, that to bring these bigger nations again on the same platform. One of the nation, which is the biggest one, is US, still is not present on the table when we talk about the negotiations. Yes, we have nations like Brazil or France and other nations. Majorly, these are the smaller nations, like Pakistan is always there participating in the negotiation, Armenia, Georgia, or Barbados, because they are the ones who are fighting for it, who wants the money. So they want to be there requesting that, okay, can we get the fund? But then the one who are making this problem for the other ones are not really even attending these conferences. Good that we have at least France, which is really interested and keen to even host it, to invite other nations and put money on the table to at least facilitate everyone to participate in this negotiation. But I think it will take long. I don't see anything coming on, let's say, neutral level in next 10 years at least. 10 years of more negotiations, so that we can expect that if we need $400 billion, we'll be able to get. As of now, nations are offering $10 million, and they are really doing a good PR about it. In our language, we call it greenwashing. But then, yeah.
So adding on to that, I think the question that you posed, sir, it reminds me of a quote that I saw in, I heard in the movie RRR, which did so well at the Oscars. It goes, Karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, ma karma phala heturbhur, mate sangostva karmani, which basically means do your duty without worrying about the fruit too much, and do what is in your hands to get to where you want to be. And like sir said, in Bihar, it is an issue that, you know, they are the ones who, like a lot of people in underdeveloped countries or developing countries are the ones who suffer the worst from climate crisis and who suffer the most because of actions of developed countries. But I still think even then, we have to do what's in our capacity. Like we have to do what we are capable of, and we have to focus on the things that we can do. A small example would be when India banned a lot of products from getting imported from China due to diplomacy. So it actually boosted our Make in India initiative so much, and overnight we had so many industries coming up, whether it was in PPE kits or even those spoons that you get at an ice cream stall, like lots of things. So I feel that our job as a country would be to first focus on the things that we can do best, which is work better on our recycling, work better on our waste management, ensure clean water at every household, improve the quality of lives of people in rural areas by giving them health, sanitation, access to education, and then perhaps, like he said, in negotiations, we have to take a stand against the countries who are doing, wrong. So I feel like that step, the strong step, would take time, like he said, but I feel it's the productive way forward.
Thank you. So let me ask one final question before we open up. So you can take it in any order. So let's say I could wave a magic wand and make you the climate czar for India, where you have unfettered powers. You can do anything you want. What are the top 3 things you would do? Who wants to go first?
Okay, so when it comes to climate change, or anything in life, and if you haven't heard me up until now, it's okay, but I would warmly request, listen to me on this one thing. It's going to be a little fun. So anything we do in life, and even if climate change, we do it for one of the reasons. Either it's our brain or either it's our heart. There's no thing as heart. Eventually it's the other part of the brain, but for now let's just keep it divided. Heart and brain. If my heart says I want to do it, I do it out of passion, that I'm really passionate about it. I'm a singer, I want to write songs or make paintings or travel, passion. or else I do out of my brain that, okay, no, I need to make money. So I have to do a XYZ job, whatever it is. Now, whether it's making music, I will do out of pressure, or whether it's running a IT company or whatever job, I'll do it out of pressure. So now to fix climate change, there are two ways. Either you decide that I want to live a kind and compassionate life and I don't want to cause any harm to anyone. And that is really difficult because we are already who we are and we don't want to change because we love ourselves and that's the reason who we are. Or the other one is brain. How does brain work? Is I'm going to push sort of like a policy which will say that, okay, if you don't wear a helmet or a seatbelt, I'm going to charge you fine. That's what carbon tax is, right? So now there are two ways, and I think if I have the opportunity to apply, I would apply both of them. And one is putting a carbon/methane tax, right? That we do create a proper framework and we define for categories of individual that how much carbon/methane emissions are allowed to them, like we are talking on the global scale of loss and damage as well, that India does not want to come under a cap that, okay, I won't emit more than this much carbon because I'm a developing nation. I should be allowed to emit more carbon because other nations have already emitted and now they are growing. So hence there's a different cap for developing countries, underdeveloped and the developed ones. Similarly, I would like to have such a framework for individuals in the country that, okay, depending upon how much money you make or what sort of family you have, how many family members do you have, here's the carbon emissions allowed for you /methane emissions allowed for you. One is this, which is the brain thing, and another one is the heart. For that, we have to go back and it will take at least 3 generations to come to get this change really out there in them, which is to change the education system. We do not really teach kids climate change. We just, I don't want to say things, but we teach them anything and anything random, but not what really is important. So I would really love, second thing is we get climate education, and in a way that, and also not only climate education, another education is this compassion, right? Because that's what I'm talking about. That's the way to change a human itself, that they wouldn't want to harm anyone. Why do I need to put a fine on you to not to emit more carbon emission because it's killing other people? Why just can't you feel it that I want to stop it? So I think 2 things, one from the brain, another from the heart. Brain is law and heart is education.
So on the carbon tax, obviously the economist in me agrees, but then I'm reminded of this famous quote, Jean-Claude Juncker was the EU commissioner some time ago, and he said, we all know what to do, we just don't know how to get re-elected after we do it.
I understand. That's the reason politicians and all the leaders, the problem is, do I want to fix it or do I want my chair? It's the dilemma between them, and they try to keep their chair as long as they can and do whatever least is possible to also show out there that, hey, I'm doing things.
So if I was the climate Zarina of the country for a day, I would, first of all, I would definitely implement solar a lot more, because it's so easily doable in our country. Second, I would probably ban plastic toothbrushes and any cosmetics that are packaged in unnecessary plastic. I would humbly request Amazon to stop packing things which are this tiny in boxes that are this big and wrapped in so much unnecessary bubble wrap. I would also ensure that, I would want to ensure that kids in rural areas have access to proper education. I would try to encourage people to vote for the right people. And I would also try to implement marine conservation. So our blue economy has really been thriving in India now, and I think fish cultivation and a lot of the even silkworm cultivation as well. So these are great industries to promote, if in power. And the other thing is to take stricter action on poaching, which I feel is quite, of course, poaching has come down a lot in India in the last few years statistically, but it is still very much prevalent. And I think stricter norms need to be implemented for making sure it's completely banned.
Fantastic. So thank you very much. Let's open it up for a few questions. Who wants to go first? Yeah, let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Yes, please. And please introduce yourself when you speak.
Yeah, we are sending a mic across to you, sir.
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
In the first place, congratulations to Arushi and Akash and the gentleman who's moderating the whole discussion. I think it has been fantastic. A lot of brain teasing. But Akash, I must tell you, you've given me a guilt. I was enjoying my fish fillets and chicken. and you spoke about being vegan. That's in the lighter vein. I have a straight question for both of you, and probably also the gentleman who's moderating this. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for the last 36 years, attempting to influence minds towards sustainability. I have a straight question for you. What do you choose between an ethical plunge in the sea of sustainability, driven by once, as you talk about passion, heart, hate, whatever, the combination of both, or enforcement of a diktat in a country like ours? What do you think should be the priority? I hope I'm very clear in that.
Heart.
I would want you to be a little more explicit. I'm a teacher. I'm not happy with short answers.
Okay, it's a 10 marks answer then. So, no, I would clearly say heart, because when you do it with the brain, as soon as you are not looking at me, I will stop doing what you asked me to do. I've been a kid, right? I have been this kid who would get supplementaries or fail results in exams. So I was this kid that as soon as my guardians are looking at me, I will study. And as soon as you stop looking at me, I won't really care about it, right? I studied science because I really wanted to do it. If this was again the force from parents or from school, I would have just got the numbers, but I wouldn't have written a book, or I would have just done some job, right? Like, not demeaning jobs, the people who do, they do good, I'm talking about me. I would have just tried to go through the office hours and made the money and really not really care about the job. And the office, the company would suffer because I'm really not that person who really genuinely care about this thing. So and again, we know that once you start putting just laws on people that they have to follow without, even if they don't believe into it, after a time, the leader won't be there at the designation. And once the leader goes off, we have seen countries like Afghanistan, what happens, right? So it doesn't make sense in long term or in short term to just push people to follow the rules. What makes sense is to really let people hear you and then let them follow you as much as they can. It not has to be 100%. Let them do as much as they can. Yeah.
I think it's a bit of both. I think there's no one right answer to this, but because it has to start from the heart, like he said, anything that starts from the heart definitely lasts longer. But it has to be combined with effective policy implementation as well. I think, like, for example, you know, it would be nice if we could tell kids at school to start using eco-friendly cutlery that they can carry with themselves so that they don't have to use plastic anymore. But at the same time, and, you know, show them that, look, these bamboo, you know, these jute pouches are so cute. You can put them in your school bags. The wooden spoons are very pretty. The metal straw is actually much more effective than a plastic one when you're trying to get your drink in. But at the same time, the government also has to start making the sale of these mandatory in supermarkets. And I think airplanes also, for example, like flights and trains, they need to completely ban single-use plastics from their, you know, the food that they deliver, so that the kids who really think from their heart of, you know, carrying these things, they actually start doing it as well. Like, they are forced to use these things, which they also initially will, you know, start to like.
So I think you wanted me also to answer. So let me tell you that I'm an economist, and I've worked in public policy for over 3 decades. So I'll tell you a couple of things. One is that change is very hard, and people respond to incentives. That's like Econ 101, right? People respond to incentives. I agree with both Arushi and Akash that, you know, cracking the whip doesn't work at all. There's the old joke about the Soviet Union that they said that they pretend to pay us and we pretend to pay. To work, sorry. They pretend to pay us and we pretend to work. So it's like that, you know, people will pretend, but you won't get real change. But at the same time, you know, well-designed policy really can make an impact. It takes a lot of time, but it does make an impact. And I'm old enough to remember, you know, I'm from Bihar, and I also was in the Bihar cadre of the IAS. I remember real poverty, you know, like probably the kind that you have never seen in Goa. That kind of extreme poverty doesn't exist in India anymore. And that's a big achievement. And we should all, you know, really salute, you know, all the governments that have come since then in making it happen. So I'm very optimistic, you know, like the solar story in Bihar, in India, is a really big success story. So there are lots of good things that are happening, and let's just try and build on that. That would be my short answer to your very good question.
Another positive thing on what you said is also Indore, like how they are becoming the cleanest city. And obviously they started with what do we call laws and administrative bodies leading people or policies, but eventually now people have personally, individually started to take as a pride that, okay, my city, clean city, I want to keep it this way. So now the government does not have to run it all the time. Now people have sort of like become a stakeholder of the same philosophy, so they now run it.
That's a very good example, Akash, and I would say that what we need also is that cities and states can learn from each other. So if Indore is doing it, maybe Ghaziabad wants to learn from it.
So taking inspiration from Indore, the city where I stay right now, which is Nagpur, we actually built our entire metro, our entire metro is fueled on industrial waste. So even the hair that is discarded at a hair salon is used as fuel. And to me, that is just remarkable. And that also encouraged a lot of locals to start using the metro and stop using their cars, which is a change that came from heart after a good policy was implemented. So there was also, the municipality worked on waste segregation as well. So they actually kind of imposed it on all the households to keep their waste in 2 separate bags. And slowly, people also started realizing the benefits of it when they realized their house was cleaner for some reason. Their city was getting a lot of accolades in the international media. They felt so good about it, and they were actually driven by heart. And that's because of leaders in the city who made sure that they're consciously choosing to segregate waste on their own and take public transport wherever feasible and keep the city clean.
Very good. More questions? I can't see very well because of the lights, but yes, please, gentleman at the back.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Sriram. I am from NIO, Goa. I am a scientist here. I have few questions, like you're talking about the solar energy. I am with a background of energy exploration. I look at different resources in the oceans. One question is that most of the time we are talking about the renewable energy, solar or the wind energy, and we are talking about the battery cars. This is a big issue, personally I feel, because we are saying for move to the zero carbon, we would like to look at the batteries, where lithium is the major. Lot of mining is going on, which is almost like 20 to 30 times faster than oil exploration. So how we look into this mining? Because it creates a lot of dust, pollution, and it creates health issues for the common man who are surrounding the mining areas. There are places in Africa where the villages are vacated because of mining. And now government is emphasizing for blue economy, where we have to look at the resource in the oceans. So I work personally on the cobalt crust, polymetallic nodules. These are the rare earth metals which are available in the oceans. Once I try to look at the resource, I have to exploit it. To exploit, I have to destruct the ecosystem there. So that is again going to impact the land, because 70 to 80% of the oxygen that we talk plants generate, but ocean generates the 70% of oxygen for us. If you are spoiling the ecosystem in the ocean, it creates natural calamities. So how we can address all these issues where the other end you are talking zero carbon, but alternate you are creating another hazard?
So, sir, thank you for your question. I drive an MG electric car, and the best thing that I really found out about the car is that all the lithium from old MG cars is actually recycled for the new car. So fresh lithium mining is not happening when it comes to, I'm talking only about the 3-4 major EV companies like MG, Tesla, even Tata for that matter. So, which was a big relief to me, because I had the exact same concern as you, which is, how can we keep mining lithium constantly, even though we have finally found a lot of reserves in India as well now. The second thing is that with the blue economy, I think that our concern should be carbon sequestration. Rather than, so I agree with you that we cannot just destroy the marine life for the sake of building an EV or building more renewable tech. So I think my personal opinion is that for a particular, for a marine conservation, carbon sequestration is important, which comes from kelp, right? So all the kelp and marine algae, which actually is a carbon sink, which absorbs carbon from the environment, that has to be preserved, which can happen only with sustainable fishing and when we as tourists stop littering every time we take a boat ride. And electric cars, in my personal opinion, are a wonderful, innovation, because apart from, of course, the low-quality electric cars which blew up a few years ago, and I don't want to take the name of the brand, but I think we all know it. So the electric scooters which blew up and there was an accident, but those were low-quality batteries, right? So even the batteries that we use at home for our torches and everything, that is also recyclable. So it's 100% recycled into a new battery. So I think that really helps us in moving forward in that direction. But yes, marine conservation is genuinely a big concern for us.
I think the first thing important is to understand that we are 8 billion people, right? I don't want to emphasize on it again and again, but then the consumption level is unrealistically high. We first of all need to see that, do I really need to consume that much? When I was telling you about that, okay, how I started getting into this space, the first thing I did was to look at my consumption. Do I really need it? Do I really need that many of number of clothes? That's the only pair of shoes I have. No matter what time you meet me, what occasion it is, I'm wearing the same shoes. Just 2 bags. I try to pack everything into it. So if we keep on demanding, I don't really think that any family is ready to supply for that much. If I have a family, let's say I and a wife and I have 2 kids, it's okay. I can sustain. How many kids am I really looking to have, right? And then how am I really trying to keep myself sustainable? What is it that business I'm doing? I'm making money and I'm keeping up with these kids. Similarly, Earth, it's a very practical thing. Earth has a limited resource. It's not unlimited, right? It's not unimaginable. If we really want, we can put the team on place and they can really calculate, right? That's what I'm saying, that we are 8 billion, we are looking forward to be 10 billion in upcoming few decades. And then the way we consume, right? I am not getting into this conversation, but for a reference, if you go and tell someone that, okay, I don't do it, people do it, and I know it. I am just saying because I'm, as I said, that I'm an optimist. I don't push people. But I've heard the conversation where somebody goes, A person to B person says that you should not eat non-veg, right? And the B person would say, hum to kitne saalon se khate aa rahe hain, right? Cave means and everyone has been eating. Now the point is, understand how many people were there on the face of Earth, how many people are now on the face of Earth, right? How many animals were there at that point of time, ratio-wise? Now how many are there, ratio, right? And how many years does it take for that animal to take a birth and then come back to that stage, right? क्या आप उतना बड़ा gap दे रहे हो उस चीज़ को नहीं? So the point is, हमारी population constantly grow हो रही है at an unprecedented rate, and then our consumption levels are also increasing. Why? Because companies are trying to simplify the consumption. That, okay, you don't need to do anything. Sit at home. You have a thing in your phone called phone. We have created an app. You can install it. You don't even have to go to a URL. Type. You don't have to type it. Just a app. Click. Tell us what you want to eat. What kind of animal you want to eat. We'll send it at your home. Prepared. You just have to open the box. Eat it. Done. So you see, consumption is becoming so easy. And then we do have money, or even if we don't have money, there are banks offering us loan so that you spend today. You don't have to worry about if you have the money tomorrow not to return. We'll see what to do about it. You have credit score, that's more than enough. So I don't really see how practically whosoever is planning, who's the leader of all of us who's planning that, okay, keep having more and more babies and keep consuming, things will solve. No. It's us who have to start taking step. Obviously, we can't always rely on our leaders, because as you and I, we just touched on the topic that the leader is worried about his chair. The leader is not really worried about saving the world in reality, right? Because if whosoever is the leader of a respective country starts saving the country right now, all the citizens will start hating that leader right away. That's how it is. Like, if you go to a really good Gurukul and they have a really disciplined way of life, you will have to wake up 4 or 5 in the morning. Majority of the kids, if you really let them choose the leader, will say, no, this is not a good teacher, we want to remove it. Good things do not come off easy. And we are really sort of like, how do I say it? We are really addicted to comfort zone, right? We don't want to have uncomfortable things. So to answer what he said, people are not ready to go for the real path.
And the consumerism which he's talking about, like people are so addicted to comfort that they want to buy 4 EVs for like 3 people in the house, the ones who can afford it. So that is a problem, and that's when I think the issue of extreme lithium mining and marine conservation comes into play when our consumption is much more than what is required.
So let me just add to this. First of all, it's a fantastic question, and I don't think there's a really good answer. I think Arushi and Akash were pointing to some possible directions. But let me try and give you my take on this. So the first thing I would say is that you've put your finger on a very big issue, which is that as we do the energy transition towards renewable energy, we will need more and more sustainable mining. You mentioned rare earths. I'm sure many of you know there's nothing rare about rare earths. It's those elements are found very common. The reason why rare earths are concentrated, the production is concentrated in a few countries, is because they're so dirty. The mining is so polluting that developed countries don't want to have it in their backyard. So the solution to that is again in economics, because mining companies have essentially been allowed to treat it as an externality. They're not internalizing the cost. So we need to find some ways to internalize that cost and make mining more sustainable. But I'm also a techno-optimist. I feel that you mentioned the oceans, but
out of the answers they are given, like carbon sequestration is a question, because I'm expert in that work where I'm working for industry. For that, a lot of technology is required, and you need a lot of reservoir in the subsurface. So identifying such reservoirs is a huge job. Is high-end jobs. So practically, I'll tell you one example where working for Goa government. I'm working for the Goa government. I can proudly say that Goa government has sponsored a project for sustainable mining in sand. Because Goa rivers, we know they are very small estuaries. Mining of sand is required for the construction and for the job creations. If they import the sand from other states, it's very expensive. And we are sponsored to work on such kind of studies and give the sustainable mining activity, how it can be sustain the rivers. In that case, for past 4 years, we were working with the government and we are given a lot of solutions. But the same solutions we tried to give to other states where intense mining is happening. But very unfortunate to happen that we are asked by the UP government to do such works in Ganga. The day we got call, in a weekdays, we saw that their IAS officer was killed. He went for inspection, he was dumped with a poclaner of sand on him and he died. And there was a case in Telangana, 2 activists, both the wife and husband lawyers, they are killed by the politician on the national highway. He snapped their heads on the road. So when we talk about such kind of activities are happening, who comes forward to take a challenge of these kind of conservation methods or conservation policies? So we are encouraging the society to take up such challenges and go ahead, or we are killing the initial phase?
I am saying that when it comes to carbon sequestration, I am saying that there are ways that we as consumers or we as travelers don't litter marine areas, especially where the carbon sink is being formed due to kelp and other marine algae, and find ways to propagate it, right? Mining, like you said, is a terrible concern for us. I am from Hyderabad, so I am very much aware of the kind of mining mafia that exists in the south of India. And it is very unfortunate, and I don't think that they will ever stop living like kings till we have strict action being taken upon them as a policy. So it's a mix of everything. It's a mix of people's consumption. It's a mix of strict action and policy against the mafia. It's also a matter of policy.
Can we take one final round of questions? Anyone else? Oh, at the back, yes.
Hello, my name is Joanna Perez from a platform called Act for Goa. We're a platform to bring civil society, business, government, and the education sector together to work towards the sustainability of the state. My question is about the enviable proportion of the Indian population that is youth and young people, particularly compared to other countries. And I'd like to ask, what do the three of you see as the strategic role for young people in India to play towards climate transition? Thank you.
So a very dear friend of mine, Sudhanshu Kaushik. He runs an organization by the name of Young India Foundation, and the whole organization focuses on this one thing only, that how do we get young people to participate in the government, because obviously, as ma'am mentioned, that okay, the population, if we really see that okay, how many of percentage of people are under the age of 30 in the country versus ratio wise, if we compare it to the how many people are there really participating in the what do we call Indian government, or whether they are really given a place in any party. Yes, each of the party does have their young wing, but it's not really being given the voice in the when it comes to really taking actual actions or making policies. So that's obviously there, and I believe in it. I'm under 30 and I'm pushing for it, that okay, how do I take my voice or my opinion there, because again, what happens once you reach to an age and you have the chair, you don't want to lose it. So you don't want to listen to young people, but I believe, as at least to myself and as much as I understand young people, they come with this risk that okay, I'm ready to lose because I do not have much to lose, and hence I'm ready to lose, even if it takes my whatever position I've built or the chair I've built. If I can get the action, I'm ready to let go of it. So I totally believe that young people have to be there, and also that when it's about me, I see future in a different way. I've experienced life in a different way. I've educated in a different way. My philosophy is very different when it comes to life versus the people who are at 60, 70 or 80 even. They see life in a very different way. They are trying to save money for the family which is yet to come or after them, versus I'm not really worried about making money. I'm like, okay, can I really make the change? I'll be happy with the change and I can live a fulfilled life, versus they are more practical. So I totally believe, I think there's no second thought in it, and even the people who are at 60 or 80, and even you sir would also agree to it, that yeah, young people would be ready, easier to take a risk and make more practical choices rather than looking at money or anything else.
I think it's wonderful that the youth of India, in my personal experience, the Gen Z and the millennials that I've interacted with are actually much more aware of climate action than the previous generations. That in itself is like the first step in the right direction. The second is that they're actually looking for opportunities to get involved to create impact. So especially in the urban areas, especially in the software industry, for example, or a lot of jobs where there is unfortunately an excessive monotony. So people are looking to escape that, and people are looking to feel better about their day or about their week or their life. And they're actively seeking opportunities to volunteer at places. I remember the first cleanup drive that I had organized a couple of years ago in Hyderabad. So I just put up one post on Instagram, and I wasn't very active on social media back then, so it's not like I had some great following there. But I just put up one post, and actually around 70 or 80 people turned up within just the next day. You know, it was a random thought that I had. I said, okay, let's just give it a shot, let's give it a try and see how many people show up. I thought it's going to be 10 people at best, but 70 or 80 of them turned up at 8 in the morning on a Sunday. And just because they wanted to feel good about what they're doing, and yes, also because they were getting certificates for the cleanup. But, you know, eventually, like Sir said, incentives, right? So I think today the youth has so many opportunities in terms of both incentives and the platform to do good. And because of social media, which the Indian youth is so active on, so you have memes on sustainability, which people are really actively engaging in now. And people are aware of the kind of changes they need to, they've started going back to eating local and seasonal food. And they know today that maybe it's better to eat something which is locally grown and made in India, or it's better to buy organic produce. Then the year of millets, which was 2023, that brought in so much change. I've been eating millets for the last 5 years, but a lot of my friends also started eating millets and posting pictures online, which really encouraged, and they started posting those transformation pictures like before and after of how their body changed. And that really encouraged people to take up eating local food, which is also climate resilient. So in my opinion, these are the things that Indian youth has already been really actively doing to take part in climate action, because yes, it's not possible for everybody to sit and draft policies in a parliament. It's not possible for everybody to run an NGO. People are just looking to do that 1% thing that they can. And in fact, my cousin also took up, he did his master's in environmental engineering after doing a bachelor's in civil engineering. And he's, I think, the first person that I knew a couple of years ago who took up such a course. But he's doing well in it now. And that to me was also an eye-opener that students are now, Indian students are now realizing the potential that an environmental engineering degree has for the future. They realize that they can be the change makers of the future and make money from it as well. So I think, yeah.
I want to add something to it. So it's not really in the same lines of the question, but there's another understanding if we can have. The people who are in the power, they do not want young people to be in the power because young people think in a different way. They want to continue it the same way it is going. And it's a really long thing. When I say, you might say that, okay, it does not make that much sense, but trust me on it, that our education will never really talk about, I'm saying, until we really decide to change it and somebody in power comes and try to change it. Leaders do not really want young people or kids to actually study climate change, right? Because if I let you do this, or I'll let you all the secrets or all the actual knowledge, you will try to change things. And I do not want you to be educated, because if you are educated, you will question me, and in that way, I won't be able to win. If I want to win, I have to make sure that you are all dumb so that I can keep winning. So first, I won't provide you the education. We have seen, I won't name it, I don't want to go political as well, but we have seen institutions where kids have come up and started questioning. We know that how bad PR has been created for those institutions, and the name itself has been sort of like black marked, that okay, these institutions are not good institutions. The kids which come out of these institutions, they ask too many questions, and even our society is the same. If you as a kid, even if I'm getting, let's say, pulled by a police person on the road, if I start asking questions, I'm inviting more problems. As of now, I can just give 500 rupees and go, no matter what was my mistake. But if I start questioning the policeman, that okay, why this, why that, and this and that, he'll be like, okay, now I'm going to charge you 15,000 rupees on paper. I don't need 500 rupees for my pocket, right? That's how the society runs. Even that's how parents are. That if they tell you something and you have to do the same thing as they are saying, if you do it good, if you don't do exactly the same way that they have told you and you start questioning, they'll be like, what is this nonsense? How dare you question me? I'm telling you, you do this, you do this. That's how politics is as well. Leaders are as well, right? So leaders do not really want kids to be educated, to really know things and to have the guts to question. That's the reason majority of the political party, if you really look at the people who support them, the kids who are running around with their jhandas and everything, they are not really educated. If they are educated, they would go start doing things. They won't have time to run in rallies.
Anything to add?
I was just adding on that what he's saying is, I mean, I partially agree with what he's saying, but I also feel like, for example, the bribe example that he gave, I do feel it's a two-way street as well. If I've broken a traffic rule on the road, it is my mistake, and I think ownership is a large part of climate action as well. Like, are we really, how responsible do we feel for the carbon footprint that we are generating? How responsible do we feel when we are breaking a red light on the road, even though the road is empty and there are no traffic policemen in sight? There are so many cars that still go past it. And if you are unlucky, you get caught, and then you're asked to either pay a fine, and then you choose to not pay the fine and maybe pay a lesser bribe amount and get out of it. So it's up to us to do the right thing, and which is better for both us and the system.
So on that note, let's give a round of applause to our two speakers.
We have one final question waiting on the other side. We'll keep it quick. Can I see a show of hand, please? Yes. We have a mic waiting for you. Somebody was there on the other end.
Okay, this is the last one, so please.
Yes, final one.
Hi, I'm Janvi Khurana. I'm a student of Delhi University. I just had one question. Being a part of the youth or the Gen Z, what role can the youth play to raise awareness about climate change?
First is learn. We need to have education in order to do anything. If we don't have the base ourselves clear, we can't really do anything. So first is majority of the kids do not want to learn, and the whole fight for them is about plastic, plastic, plastic. Forget plastic. Plastic is visible to your eyes. That's the reason it's a problem. If I start showing you the problem, you'll forget plastic exists. We don't know the problem, right? So it's like, okay, there are 10 kids in the school, or there are 10 kids in the home. The one who makes mistake and being caught is the one who will get scolded. The other people who make mistake but are not being caught, they will never get to know about it, right? So it's about, we see plastic, it's being littered around, it's very cheap, hence people throw it here and there and you see it more of it. It's not really the problem, it's actually 2% waste material of petroleum which is made into plastic. Now see, climate change, there's methane and there's carbon. Methane is a bigger impact, which is the molecules of methane are 28 times thicker than the molecules of carbon. So first it's bigger, then comes carbon. Now carbon has so many issues out of like sources where we are releasing carbon, and out of so many resources there's one petroleum. Under petroleum there's overall 2% of waste of petroleum, and out of that waste we create plastic. Let's stop talking about plastic. There are bigger issues we need to look at and we need to study about. And let's do less chatter and let's really look into action, bigger action. If you really want to take an action, anybody wants to take an action, go plant-based. That's one of the biggest steps you can take.
I think adding on to what he said, like, you know, the action that that we want to talk about is that as a college student at DU, let's say, for example, the first thing that you can do is maybe conduct a workshop with some of your friends on campus, talk to your administration about it, and conduct a workshop on eco-friendly living, right? And maybe you could call Akash or myself to conduct it for you. But but the thing is that you start supplying things that students need every day in their college for, you know, a life, like a bamboo toothbrush. You start telling them about tooth powder, which is, you know, which comes in glass jars. You tell them not to use straws in your college canteen. Put up those posters everywhere, or like a banner, or maybe talk to your administration for fining people who are now using polythene bags on campus. Like Maharashtra has a very strict policy on not using polythene bags, and because of that, every vegetable sabzi mandi that you say, every sabzi mandi that you go to, you see every person is coming only with their cloth bags to buy the fruits and vegetables, and which is a very big change, right? So those are things that you can implement at campus to sort of get kids involved in the process of climate action and let them know about, and like he said, awareness, right? So learn about the things that you can do, learn about the benefits of eating vegetarian food, which is good for your health, or you learn about the benefits of using non-toxic products. Cosmetics, for example, are quite horrible, but unfortunately still in use, right? That's a major contributor to plastic pollution. So talk about those things, conduct workshops, and sell those products on college campus. Put up stalls. There are so many vendors that you'll find. So I think this is like a holistic approach as well, because it creates awareness, it's mobilizing an industry as well, and it's getting the education system involved.
So I'm sure there are lots of more questions, but you can catch up both our speakers over dinner. But before I turn it back to Ruchika, let's give a big round of applause to our two speakers.
Let's make it higher and louder, people. Let's do a bit of climate mitigation here by adding some more decibels to it. And of course, a round of applause for our moderator here, the chairperson, Mr. Abhas Jha. What an amazing freewheeling chat, everyone. And I was listening to the three of you, and I almost felt that on the opening night of this summit, we have literally drawn out three aces, you know, Akash, Arushi, and Abhas. What an amazing set of people on the stage. And thank you so much for your time up here. I invite you all to please come back to your seats in the audience. Time for you to mingle, pick up your much-needed drinks. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, I close the formal agenda for the evening. But of course, the bar is open and so is the dinner. So decide kar lijiye ki pee ke khayenge ya kha ke piyenge. But whatever is it that you do, please remember that we start tomorrow morning at 9:30 when the registrations open in the convention hall at the Taj Horizon for the inaugural session and the rest of the conference. 10 o'clock we start, and it's going to be a very high-profile inauguration. We are expecting the Honorable Chief Minister of Goa, Dr. Pramod Sawant, to join in. The Honorable Environment Minister of Goa, Mr. Alexio Sequeira, will be there. The Chief Secretary of Goa, Mr. Puneet Kumar Goyal, will be there. And of course, a lot of other high, esteemed officials from World Bank, Goa Biodiversity and Climate Change. It's going to be a star-studded morning and a busy day, so please make sure whether you reach back your rooms in the next 1 hour or at crack of dawn because you're in Goa, but please make sure whatever time you make it to your rooms, let's see you there at the convention hall, 10 o'clock, ready to begin. Have a great rest of the evening, everyone.